Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. We are joining Russ at his construction site. So you'll be hearing some hammering and banging in the background. Ack may be joining us, but we'll forge forth here with the pre-show and some news today. Go ahead, Russ.
All right, so let's talk about a little bit more NFL draft and the New York Jets. So I'm watching SportsCenter for literally just 10 minutes, and they happen to talk about the Jets. So they did this real puff piece on how Zach Wilson, some are saying he could be the next Patrick Mahomes, and I pretended not to choke when I heard that because it's total baloney. And then they were talking about what their possible needs are. So then they lead into an interview with Booger McFarland, and the interview is like, well, you know, they have this, they have that. They were the worst offense in the league. What do they need? And he's like, running back. And he goes, they need a running back. And it's like, and so he goes through the couple of running backs and he goes, but not in the first round, in the second round. And it's like, okay, when you put on the screen priorities and you have a young quarterback coming in and you're not going to talk about what they should draft with their other first round pick, you shouldn't be on this segment because their priority should be the offensive line and protecting this young quarterback. That's the priority. Whether they do that or not is a whole other story, but that's the priority. And the fact that he would only talk about a running back and mention 3 or 4 of them and mention it for the second round, Mike, what is the meaning of the word priority? Like, why was he even on this segment? I don't even think these guys prepare for this stuff because if he understood the Jets at all, he wouldn't even have gone with that.
Well, that's typical ESPN, having people who are ill-prepared or prepared only to give hot takes. And I mean, remember Booger McFarland, who was doing the color commentating on the Bills-Houston playoff game, and he said something so ridiculous that I can't even remember. I blanked it from my memory, but it was during the game in the fourth quarter when a certain play happened. I think it was when Josh Allen lost the ball or ran back 20 years and got sacked, and he made some ridiculous comment. And just because this guy was in the NFL doesn't mean he's a good commentator. I honestly think he's a moron. But honestly, there are some people on ESPN that I think give good, insightful commentary.
No, there absolutely are. But when you're talking about something like a draft, you need to actually talk to a guy who understands the draft and the team. Now, I'm not saying the Jets don't need a running back, and I'm not saying they're not going to take one in the second round. But when you know they have 2 first-round picks and you're talking about the priority of the team after you take this young quarterback that you just pumped up for the last 2 minutes with totally farcical information, you got to do better than that. Imagine if I went on SiriusXM, my spot this week, and I tell them ahead of time, hey, we're going to talk about what these teams need in the first round, and I start talking about the second round. How do you think the host is going to react to that?
It would be your last spot.
Yeah, it would be my last spot.
Yeah, and honestly, this is the thing. I mean, you should have more of an insightful comment or point of view, especially when it comes to the Jets. As you know, they have so many holes right now that you could say about 7 different things and it would be right. Offensive line, linebacker, defensive tackle. You go down.
And don't worry, Mike, they mentioned at the very end of the segment, well, they might go for that edge rusher at 23, something the Jets haven't been able to draft in a decade. But yes, let's try again because we have another defensive coach who was going to swear that he could turn this guy into the next sack leader. It's not going to happen. Stay away from the edge rusher. It's total garbage.
Yeah, Vernon Golston is on the
Vernon Golston, Quentin Coples, Zuninga right now on the team, who I think not only didn't have a sack, I'm not even sure he had more than 10 tackles for the year. He was like a 3rd-round pick. He was the next edge rusher. That was a steal that Joe Douglas found. As fans, we get tired of this kind of stuff. And it's like, understand the organization. Don't just blurt out what you think this coach should get based on his success with other NFL franchises. The Jets are not any other NFL franchise. There's a lot of difference in there. I get what Johnny's saying, but you're going to be watching again because they're going to be doing hockey.
That's why I brought it up. And so Johnny, what this means is you're going to the only thing I can equal out Booger McFarland to is you're going to get lots of insightful commentary from Barry Melrose. Lots of it.
Yeah, hopefully they do like Barry Melrose draft coverage. I would love to see that. That would be just tremendous.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, April 22nd, 2021.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, we'll start with some of the games from the last night.
Can I give an update first?
Sure. Because
Timothy wanted to know how the bathroom renovation is going, so I'll let him know. They did install the floor of the shower stall. The plumber was already here. They're putting in – the electrician was already here. So they're putting in the insulation, and they had the drywall going up today, and they have some of the waterproof stuff, ceiling tiles going up over the shower, and and right now it's just a plywood floor. The other floor hasn't come in yet, so that's where we're at. I'll update you, Timothy, when I know more.
Okay, we'll start with the games last night, and the Vegas Golden Knights with their 5-2 victory over the San Jose Sharks become the first of the 16 teams to clinch a playoff spot. Now, I watched only a few minutes of this game. I saw that San Jose was starting a rookie goaltender in his second NHL start, and I said, yeah, this is not going to be much of a contest, and it ended up not being much of a contest. Now, I think everybody expected Vegas to make the playoffs, of course. It's a question of how far they're going to get in the playoffs. And I looked at that division and, round 2, if it ends up being Vegas-Colorado, that's probably the toughest round 2 matchup you could possibly get.
In the league, yeah. I do think Vegas would have trouble with Colorado's speed. That game was close until that young goalie – I'm not going to try and pronounce his name right now, but that young goalie misplayed a puck behind the net, and that went into the back of the net, and just about 25 seconds later, and then the whole game started to shift. It was pretty physical until then, Mike. Like, there was a lot of hitting. San Jose was keeping it close, but that was the point where the better veteran team just took advantage and then snowballed it after that.
Yeah, Coronar, I think it's.
Coronar, something like that.
Yeah, I think he's Czech, so it's probably not Coronar. It's probably Coronash or something like that.
Yeah.
But, I give Vegas full credit because, and you got to remember, Leonard was out for a sizable period of time, and Fleury stood up and took on the number one goaltending role when a lot of people probably thought that he couldn't do it anymore, and has had a fantastic year. So they really got saved by Fleury, and now that Leonard is back, you got that 1-2 punch and goal. And I would assume that they're going to go with Fleury in the playoffs, but I can't make that assumption because you thought that they were going to go with Fleury in the playoffs last year, even though he was having a sort of an off year, and they went with Leonard. So who knows what Vegas is going to do.
We don't know, but let's talk about Robin Leonard yesterday, who did open his mouth in a press conference and decided to talk about how frustrating and disappointing the whole vaccination process was because the league promised him one thing and it didn't happen after. Basically, I think players believed that once they got vaccinated, they could just go back and do whatever the hell they wanted. Right. But I don't think players understood that this is a moving target. You really can't blame the league if they said, this is what we think today. I'll tell you what this is like, Mike. This is like you dropping off your car at the garage, right? You drop it off and they say, hey, sign this sheet. These are the things we're looking at. We think it's this. And then they call you 2 hours later. They say it's this, that, and the other. Yeah. And then when that happens, then plans change. And I think someone got to Leonard after because then he changed his remarks a little bit. But the idea was, I get you could be frustrated from the mental health standpoint. We all have gone through this. We're all changing our lives because of this.
Right.
Got it. But the other part where you're disappointed because you felt like restrictions were going to loosen up because you got vaccinated. Well, guess what? Join the rest of the world, buddy. And that's the point where athletes have to understand the rest of the world, what they're going through too, and some don't.
The first thing I thought of when I heard Leonard's comments was, okay, I just got my second shot a week ago. In a week, I'll be 2 weeks out, and then I'll be, quote, fully vaccinated, unquote.
Right.
That doesn't change the fact that I'm going to have to go out with a mask in most places because, you still have to respect the limitations that are out there.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that I can go back to the local gym that I have a membership at. But the problem is that I don't want to go to a gym without wearing a mask because I've been doing physical therapy with a mask and I can barely breathe if I'm on the exercise bike or if I'm on the elliptical. So, I may not go back to that gym until I don't have to wear a mask, which could be another 6 months. I mean, luckily it's the summer and I'll be able to run and walk and do other things and get my cardio up that way. But honestly, it's like, we're not going, just because we're vaccinated, everything is not going to go back to square one. Not right away. I hope eventually things will go back to square one, but it's not going to be instantaneous. And Robin Leonard, I mean, I respect all the
No, we get it. We know that it's tough on him mentally, but that still doesn't mean he didn't speak out of turn, because he did. He was speaking like a privileged person. That's what he was speaking like.
This is the only thing that I'll say as a caveat here. I mean, and I don't know, there's no way for us to know whether it's true or not. If he was told by the NHL, and the NHL is denying that they said this, but if he was told by NHL sources that they could go back to the way things were as soon as they got vaccinated, then he has a right to be pissed off.
I'm sure they didn't use it in those direct terms because they haven't been saying anything in those direct terms. I think they said the hope. I'm pretty sure they would have said something like, hey, the hope is we could do this after this happens. And guess what? Hope doesn't always work.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think, and the funny thing, in the media availabilities this morning, some of the Leaf players were asked about Leonard's comments, and Nick Foligno had a very thoughtful answer. He says he knows Leonard a little bit from their days in Ottawa, but really again, I think everybody wants things to go back to normal. I mean, right now, if you're living in Ontario, you can't go out and golf. And I'm not a golfer, but it's like, honestly, you're telling me that you can't do things that even in the outdoors. I mean,
I'll tell you, it's not that. It's not that. You know what it is? It's
the afterward.
We're going to congregate and drink together. Yes. We're going to stand around and speak loudly together, and that's what they don't want.
Right.
If it was simply, hey, you can go on the golf course, everybody's got to get spaced. There's no drinking or eating, and you can go through your 12 holes. They could do that. And then you know how many golfers would show up? Half of them.
Right. Because, I mean, most of them, the motivation is it's to enjoy the game. It's to enjoy the outdoors. It's to enjoy a beer or two.
Right. And right now you can't do that.
Right. And so, so other games last night. This one I watched a lot of. It was on NBCSN. And Timothy Park, no, you would not love to see me golf. If you want to see golf clubs broken against a tree, that's what you would see if I would golf. So that's why you will never see me golf. The game on NBCSN last night was pretty boring until I turned back in the third period when Nashville was up 4-1, and all of a sudden it was 4-4.
You would have thought things were going well for Nashville when Granlund scored with about 1 second or no seconds left in the I guess that was the second period. I watched it. It was interesting. I watched it up to that point. I left it for a little while and then saw that they were catching up and then went back to it.
Well, Luke Cunnin scored 58 seconds into the third, so that made it 4-1.
Yeah.
Then Chicago scored 3 goals in 2 minutes and 51 seconds to tie it up. And then had a double minor power play, had a 4-minute power play at the end of regulation that was really disjointed, but they needed to win that game in regulation to move two points closer to Nashville. I mean, they only moved 1 point, and it's, when you're down 4-1, will you take a 5-4 victory in overtime?
Yeah.
Yes, but you really needed that win in regulation.
2 things I'll say here. First one is UC Saros is not a good goaltender. Second one is making the playoffs will be the worst thing that could happen to the Nashville Predators. It really would be, because they're not going to make as much playoff revenue as they normally would. They're not going to help themselves for next year, and they're just getting older, and the team's getting worse. this team may limp into the playoffs, but they're not beating anybody.
No, they're going to get destroyed by either Carolina, Tampa, or Florida. Whoever wins first place in that division, it's a consolation prize basically to get fourth place in that division. I
do want to mention why Kaleniuk scored his third goal. Look, I said I would try and do everything I could if I were the Flyers to sign him at the time. For whatever reason, he didn't go there. Maybe he thought there were too much competition, so he went to Chicago. But I told people he's got a lethal shot and he's great on the power play, and he is living up to it, man. So good for Chicago. Chicago's scrappy, right? They're fighting. They're
such a hodgepodge. I mean,
they are a hodgepodge. They're another team, but they could go further than a Nashville if they made the playoffs simply because of guys like Kane, and there's some of their secondary scoring, DeBrincat, all those kinds of guys. They could actually go further than Nashville. They're not going anywhere, but Chicago first would have to make the playoffs.
Other games last night, the Minnesota Wild beat the Coyotes 4-1. If you look at the standings right now in these divisions, now Minnesota, they're right there in third place behind Vegas and Colorado, nicely nestled in third spot. They might be able to catch Colorado, but probably not. Colorado's got 2 games in hand or ahead 3 points. So they're probably going to play whoever loses the race for top spot in the West. And then you look at Arizona, and I think Arizona's done, even though they're in fourth spot. St. Louis has 4 games in hand, and they're a point behind them.
They're going to gut it out. They are.
Yeah, and San Jose's trailing behind, so I think St. Louis is going to end up in fourth spot, and if Vegas wins first spot, it'll be very interesting to see Vegas versus St. Louis, and with Pietrangelo playing against the former team if he's back from injury. I don't know if he's back from injury yet.
Yeah, that's interesting. You got a little muffled there a couple times, Mike, when you turned your head. I'm not sure why. Maybe the mic where it's set up.
Is it better now?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I don't. I think Arizona is just one of these teams. We do talk about differential a lot, and they're a minus 26. San Jose is a minus 35. It catches up with you, and it catches up with you at the worst possible times. But this league, the way this league is, and especially the way it is right now in division, you can be sort of a paper tiger. And I think that's exactly what Arizona is. I'm not telling you St. Louis is great. They've been completely inconsistent the whole year, but they have enough experience and players that they're going to just limp in and make it. I don't know if they'll do anything, but they could certainly do that. And, in the other division, what everybody was saying, hey, they think Dallas will make it. I kind of think Dallas will make it too, but, I can't count all those games in hand. I know it is .925 this year. I get it. I still don't think he's a good goalie. You're never going to convince me that UC Saros is a good goalie because every time I see that he needs to win a game that they really need, he doesn't win it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, smaller goalies always have a issue in this league now. Not to say that every big goalie is going to be great because we've seen Anders Lindback, who was the biggest goalie, and he was But really, it's like, you can count the number of smaller goalies under 6 foot on one hand that are good in this league. And I don't know if I know that Saros has put up good stats, but I don't know if
have we seen him win something that we say, wow, you know what? He carried the team on his back. He stood on his head. Have we had this moment from him yet?
Well, he did when they had their winning streak in March. It was, I believe. Well, no, that's right. That he was out. It was mostly Rene. So yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I just haven't seen until he wins something big. I'm going to still have this take on UC Saros. Sorry.
Yeah, and the only other game last night was a light schedule, only 4 games. Was the Montreal Canadiens getting off the schneid, winning 4-3 in Edmonton. Now, this is a big loss for the Oilers because they had 2 games in hand on Toronto. They were 5 points behind. They lose one of the games in hand. They gain no points. So now, not to say it's impossible for them to catch up. It's not impossible for Winnipeg to catch the Leafs. But this was, you're playing a struggling Montreal team who had lost I think it was 5 or 6 in a row. I think it
was 5.
Yeah, and Montreal comes out on top. I'm just looking up who the goal scorers here. Lehkonen, Josh Anderson, Toffoli, and Josh Anderson. Josh Anderson's got 17 goals. I think
Josh Anderson has been a tremendous pickup for them.
For all the credit, Russ, that we give Jarmo Kekalainen, this was a hideous trade.
Yeah, but we knew it could backfire on him. We said it, that if Josh Anderson was going to play like Josh Anderson, then Montreal probably did get the better of this trade. And we did talk about that, and he is fitting right in. The other thing is we also have to talk about Toffoli, because, again, he's always been a goal scorer, but, there are times when we have questioned his output. They've found, the right spot for him again, too. But this is also what we were talking to Eck about. Montreal's going to have these kinds of games. It's not going to be pretty down the stretch with Carey Price missing a lot of time, but they're going to make the playoffs.
Right.
They will. They will limp into the playoffs.
They're like Boston, and they're like Pittsburgh in that Eastern Division where, yes, they're not perfect. Yes, they have flaws. Yes, they have flaws that might eliminate them early in the playoffs, but they're going to make the playoffs.
Right. I have to go back and answer something for Davey, because he's like, but Anderson didn't want to stay in Columbus. But it doesn't matter. The GM knows this. When these guys are there, he sort of has an inkling, I am sure, more than a few weeks, usually half a season before he's going to trade somebody, that this guy is not going to stay and re-sign based on negotiations they had over the offseason. So you have to blame the GM on this, simply because they knew he was going to be traded. And so you know what? You have to do the best you can in that trade.
Now remember, Domi was a restricted free agent. So is Anderson. Anderson was coming off a year where he scored 1 goal and he was injured for most of the season. So I freely acknowledge that his value was down, but he was having shoulder surgery to correct his issue. He was a big-bodied power forward who had proved that he could play that role in Columbus. I mean, you remember that year that they beat Tampa Bay and won against Boston. He was a house on fire in that series. So, and here's the thing. They were looking for center help, and Domi had proved in Arizona and Montreal that he wasn't a center.
Right.
So they make the trade. Bergevin rolls the dice and signs Anderson to a 5-year contract at $5.5 million. Maybe it was longer than that, maybe 7 years at $5.5 million. So he gets him at a good number, but it was definitely risky. And Columbus signs Domi for 2 years at 5.3. Right now, the risk that Bergevin took looks like a grand slam home run in the bottom of the 9th, while Jarmo has got an albatross around his neck because Tortorella is healthy scratching Max Domi right now in Columbus. Now, Tortorella might be gone, but who the hell? I mean, they'll probably expose Max Domi to the expansion draft.
Yeah, right now, I feel bad. Right now, Columbus is kind of like, how they, you would say in the Westerns, they're circling the wagons. They're done with circling the wagons. It's beyond that.
Yeah.
There are no more wagons.
And okay, like I've talked about this with Ack, and we've mentioned it on the show with Kevin Allen regarding Columbus. That franchise is in trouble. And the reason that they're in trouble is that they can never convince anybody to stay. They're so anxious to get the hell out of Dodge. And that's why, like, when they were going for the playoffs a couple years ago, and Kevin has explained that they had to win a first-round matchup. No, you have to think of the self-preservation of the franchise. That's why you don't go all out and sell a year's worth of draft picks to make a futile run to the you were going up against Tampa Bay. I mean, yes, they won. Yes, they swept. Did anybody expect that to happen? No. And then in the second round, they lost to Boston. So it was stupid to trade for Duchesne and trade for Dzingel and keep Panarin and keep Bobrovsky. They should have never made the trades for Duchesne. They should have never made the trade for Dzingel, and they should have traded Panarin and Bobrovsky and gotten assets for them, because they need to draft and develop and keep their own assets rather than go out and try to be the New York Rangers or the Maple Leafs. Nobody wants to go to Columbus. Nobody.
No, but they did need playoff revenue at the time. So
I get it.
I That was the yin and the yang of it. But, Columbus reminds me of the Washington Nationals. Nobody stays there either.
Right.
And that is a thing, but they still manage to win. And so it's not like Columbus can never win, but if guys don't stay there long term, then they are going to have to used to playing like this and operating like this, and it's hard. It's very hard.
Steven Strasburg is basically the Rick Nash of the Washington Nationals because
I think he's thrown 15 games in the last 3 years or something.
Well, as soon as he signed the big contract, he had an arm injury and he was out for the year. And is Patrick Laine the Juan Soto? Because Soto, as soon as he has the opportunity to get out of Dodge, he's going to.
Yeah, no, there's no question, and it's just a fact. And again, I didn't like the Laine trade because I didn't trust Laine would be his best, and he wasn't. He's playing his worst. Yeah, Laine's in the midst of another horrible year.
Yeah, and okay, I'll put this up here, Roger. Torts has I don't think that the downswing of the franchise has to do with Torts. In fact, I think Torts got them further with the talent that they had than most coaches would. Now he wears people out. It's time for him to go. He's not going to be back. They're going to need a coach with new direction, somebody who will play an offensive,
also like positive energy. They're going to need a lot of positive energy.
And Williams says Boudreaux in Columbus. Okay,
you know what? He could be a good fit for there.
Right, but again, the problem is, yes, Boudreaux would be an excellent choice. Maybe Laine would start scoring. Maybe he would utilize Domi in a different way where he could be somebody who's productive. Okay, the problem is Zach Werenski is 2 years away from unrestricted free agency, and Seth Jones is 1. Can you get them signed? If you can't, then the problem repeats over and over.
Well, yeah, I mean, and the problem is Laine is the next to leave, right? So that's
Jones.
No, I think Laine will be gone before Jones.
Well, I mean, if they trade him, but Laine is.
There's no point. Is there? Let me ask you this: is there any point going into next season with Patrick Laine on that team? I say no. I don't see the benefit.
I don't. Well, only if they have a coach that they think they can get more out of them.
If you're only getting it for half a season anyhow.
But the thing is does he want to be there? And if he doesn't want
to be there,
right.
Come on.
I don't think he wants to be there. And again, that's the same problem that we've had over and over. Nobody wants to be there.
Yeah. I just say at the end of the day, they do need to find players that want to be there. And it is hard in some of these cities. That's why Rick Nash, if you think about what he did there, he was the only guy that really did want to be there. Yeah. Right? We have to give Rick Nash credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I mean, in the end, he ended up going to the Rangers because he knew that he couldn't win there. He wanted to win there. He was willing to sign a big contract, make $9 million a year there. But the problem is that he couldn't win there because they couldn't surround him with enough talent to make it possible for him to win.
I knew there was a moment with Rick Nash a couple of years before he got traded. I did a sit-down interview with him and his agent. It was at an NHL 2K event when they were still making games. And we didn't talk that much about Columbus, but I also got the feeling he didn't want to talk that much about Columbus. And that's when it sort of dawned on me, okay, he is not here for the long haul. I never wrote about it. I never talked about it because it was just a gut feeling I had. But, there's been a lot of other guys that way, but he stuck it out the longest.
I mean, Flamester, I don't get this. They should have fired him before the year started. Okay, you're going to fire Tortorella after he should have won Coach of the Year. He should have won Coach of the Year last year because they were devastated by injuries and they made the playoffs. Devastated. I mean, they got through with Korpisalo and Merzlikins, and they had lost a ton of people up front, and to the point that they were playing Nathan Gerbe 20 minutes a night. And they still made the playoffs, and then they beat Toronto in the play-in. So I mean, no. But anyway, okay. So a couple things about some games tonight. We'll take some questions in the chat and do some. First of all, actually, let's start with some of the prospect news, and not prospect for the draft, but prospects. A lot of teams are giving players looks before the end of the season, and I think that's a good thing. The Buffalo Sabres announced today that their first round pick from 2020, Jack Quinn, who had played all year in the AHL with Rochester, was undergoing a season-ending surgery, so he could be ready for training camp next year. Now, I'm just looking up. The funny thing was, we talked to Joe Yerdon, Russ, and Joe had said that Quinn was struggling in Rochester, that he clearly was a boy among men there. But if you look at it, he had 9 points in 15 games, which offensively is not bad. But he was a minus 14 in 15 games. So that shows to me that defensively he wasn't aware of what needed to be done to play at the AHL level.
He's a really good skater. He's got a great shot. He's got to work on every other facet of his game: strength, defense, all those other things. They went based on the talent of the shot, which is fine. Cole Caulfield was similar. They went with the speed factor, which is fine. But now there's a rounding out of the game that has to happen.
Now, just think of this. He's having surgery now to be ready for training camp. Okay, so he's to be ready for training camp in September. He'll be 20 in mid-September. He's going right back to the American Hockey League.
Yeah.
He's not going back to junior as an overager. He's going back to the American Hockey League, and he's going to more than likely play probably a full year. So I mean, I don't know. I mean,
it's going to take a while. Listen, just because you picked him high doesn't make him an NHLer. It's going to take a while for him.
Yeah.
Now, points are one thing. Being able to score those points in the NHL are another thing.
Now, the other bit of news regarding the Sabres, which was a little surprising, that they've been playing Dustin Tokarski a lot the last few games, and actually he won NHL First Star of the Week.
Good for Dustin. He's a great guy. He stuck it out, man. That's what we got to give him credit.
But they announced that Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, their prized goaltending prospect, is going to get a start in the next couple games. And Russ, I look at his stats. He's played most of the games for Rochester. This is what they really wanted after him playing in the ECHL most of the year last year, to step him up to the next level.
Right.
He's got a winning record, but he's got a 3.6 goals against and an .888 save percentage. So really, it's like, I mean,
he's got all the physical tools, Mike, but it's to me, it's always been mental with Pekka Luukkonen, and there were certain mental hurdles he had to get over. He did get over one of them in the World Juniors, but I just feel like now he's going to have to, get over it being a pro. Let's see what happens. I mean, look, they shouldn't give him more than the one game because he's not ripping it up where he was, and it's not like the Sabres have great defense, so it is possible he goes in there and gets lit up. If he goes in there and gets lit up, you could shrug it off and say, all right, look, we gave you your game. You have to work on some stuff. But, you don't want that to happen 2 or 3 times this season and him going into the offseason thinking, wow, I am really not ready for the NHL, not even close, because who knows who their goalie's going to be next year. They may, Olmark's not a guarantee to come back. I don't know who's going to be in net for them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. They had to have a certain amount of confidence that they were going to get Olmark signed if they didn't trade him at the deadline. Because if they didn't trade him at the deadline and he walks, then Kevin Adams has got egg on his face.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I don't know why the Sabres haven't been able to procure goaltending, but this has been a problem for a long time, Mike. And this is going back. It's
been a problem since Ryan Miller.
Ryan Miller left. It really has been.
Now, Olmark has been the best of a bad lot, and this year he's had pretty good stats. I don't know. I mean, I cover the Sabres for another website, and I don't know whether Olmark has been re-injured because they have been playing Tokarski a lot lately. So I'm assuming that he is re-injured. Yeah. But they and I don't think they're going to get Olmark back unless they overpay him because they've got a ton of cap space and they need a number one goaltender.
Yeah, now, here's the update on the Olmark contract, Davey. He's going UFA. That's what he's doing. He's not signing a contract. He is going UFA. This is his one chance to get paid, and the Sabres will have to overpay if they want to keep him. But then they're also going to have to figure out the plan. See, if they overpay, they're probably only going to overpay for like 3 years, Mike, and he's going to look for more.
He's 27 years old. So if we're talking overpayment, we're talking term and money.
Yeah, but see, if they go term and money, then what are you doing with Pekka Luukkonen? Then now all of a sudden, unless you don't think he's a number one, you got a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay.
When you go 5 years, you got a problem.
If you go 5 times 5, then what you're saying is, okay, Pekka Luukkonen, prove it to me.
Right.
And then after his entry level deal is up, if you pay him, a bridge deal amount of like $3 to $4 million, then you're spending $9 million on goaltending. But the thing is that Buffalo has so much money under the cap that they don't know what to do with it. And the problem,
this guy William in the chat room said Ryan Miller got lit up his first game. One game won't hurt his future. Exactly. That's exactly what I said. One game won't matter. You play him 2 or 3 and it does it. Going into the offseason, that's when it matters. That's exactly what I said.
Marty Baron started his career against the Pittsburgh Penguins in the early 90s, the Mario Lemieux Penguins. He made his first NHL start at the Igloo and lost 8-1. Now, he had a pretty good career, but that's not where you want to put your young goaltenders, is in a situation where they get destroyed. So, I mean, I'm all for giving – and you know what? This is the thing. Don Granato, and we talked about this a few times, Don Granato has done a really good job bringing out the youngsters, giving them opportunity, infusing them with confidence. They're playing so much better than they did under that sham Ralph Kruger, because Ralph Kruger sold basically everybody a bill of goods in Buffalo, and I think everybody should sort of be pissed off at Ralph Kruger for that. But if you look at over the last 3 weeks to a month since since Kruger was fired, Middlestad's playing better, Cousins is playing better, Dahlin is playing better. They're giving opportunities to Samuelson and to Will Borgen is coming back in the lineup. I mean, they're Ruotsalainen, the Finnish prospect that they signed, who was playing in Rochester, he's playing. They're giving the youngsters a chance.
That's smart.
Which when you're bad, when you suck,
that's the one thing you could do.
That's the one thing you can do. And all of a sudden, Kyle Oposo is having season-ending surgery for a facial. Sure, he is. They probably said, we probably are going to buy you out.
So let's give this spot to a youngster who's going to see what he can show us for next year. The other thing is Zach Jones will make his debut for the Rangers. That's nice. He's a really good skating defenseman, offensive guy. I doubt he'll get power play. Maybe they'll throw him in the second for a couple of times. But he can play well in the corners. Does have some pushback. Does need to get a little stronger. But he's a terrific talent. And so that's another good step forward for the Rangers. I do have breaking news, Mike. In a press conference this morning, I guess it was, or maybe it was yesterday. You'll know better. Looks like Nick Foligno was wearing his dad Mike's hat, but it looks like it was never worn. So it looks like Mike got the hat and he threw it directly into something, because it doesn't look like it was ever worn.
No, it was in the media availability a couple minutes before the show, and I actually took a picture of it and put it on. Yeah, no, it's a very pristine looking hat for a
93 issue, right?
For being a 93 issue. But hey, it's not impossible that he didn't have that put in plastic, or he had an extra one. Who knows? But it's cool.
Well, it wasn't. He didn't throw it in the trash. That's obvious.
Well, no, because of course he's proud. He was proud to be on the team that the passion that unites us all. The '93 Leafs that, of course, got screwed by Kerry Fraser and Wayne Gretzky.
It's just amazing how many shows go back to that, and how you have that little sliver of a memory, and that's all you have. Like, that's it. It's crazy.
Well,
I feel bad, and I really don't feel bad. But I should.
Okay, hey, excuse me. 93, 94, 99, and 2002. They made the conference finals those 4 years. I was 11 years old when they made the conference final in 78. That's all Leaf fans have to live for, right? Are those 5 instances when they made the semifinals of the conference finals. Other than that, what the hell is there?
Wow, I mean, I feel like when I separate myself
up in '94,
when I separate myself and I'm a media person, I do feel like, yes, Leaf fans deserve better. They do, because it's a passionate fan base, and the memories there's just not enough good memories.
No, but of course, and I'm putting my media hat on here and separating my emotional connection to the team. You have a sizable amount of members of the media who decide that when the Leafs lose, they're going to be like the '72 Dolphins, a bunch of geriatric assholes who pop champagne because they're the only unbeaten team. You have a bunch of media members who basically go around like jumping for joy and celebrating that a fan base who've spent billions of dollars in ticket revenue over the last 53 to 54 years have fallen short again. I honestly, I don't find the only fan base that I celebrate when they lose is Montreal, because they've won 25 times.
Well, I'll give you a funny moment. I don't remember when this was, because I've been to Toronto so many times, but we're in Toronto. We're walking around. We're going into some like sports shops and things like that. We had a couple hours to kill, and we go into one, and there's a guy sitting in a chair, and he finds out, finds out that we're hockey fans, and he goes, "I'm a big Leafs fan, Optimus Rhyme," and he said that to me, and I'm like, I just looked at him, and I'm like, he's not going to win you anything. And the guy goes, he looks at me like I have three heads. What do you mean? What do you mean he's not going to? I'm like, listen, I've seen this guy play. He's an average goalie. That's it. I'm sorry to say that, but I'm just letting you know you need a better goalie. And, if I could make a trip back in time and go back into that store, I would like to see what that guy says to me now. I don't know. Maybe it would be Freddie Anderson. Maybe he would say, Freddie Anderson.
Optimus Bernier.
Yeah, I don't know what he would say now, but he just said it to me in such a weird way, like that, like he was the answer, and it's just like I wasn't buying it even then. So
yeah, no, it's just I mean, granted, this team has been flawed over the years,
yes.
And it'll be very interesting to see Nick Foligno tonight join the Leafs. They need him. It's a big game.
Yes.
I don't know whether his entry is going to make any big difference. One thing I think I do like regarding Sheldon Keefe, in his first game, he's putting Foligno right into the fire. He's putting him with Matthews and Marner. He's not putting him on the third line. He's like, okay, you know what? Get ready, kiddo.
Listen, that's the move, because Foligno's going to be fired up. That is the absolute way to get the most out of him.
Yeah, and I think it's beneficial to the team to have a guy who's sort of a crash and banger, a responsible two-way guy playing on that line, whereas Matthews and Marner are going to be somebody who are trying to create offense and sometimes leave themselves out there a little bit defensively. Although I think Matthews is much more responsible as a two-way guy than he's been over the last few years. But I like that, and we're going to see over the next few weeks where the Leafs go. That division is getting, like I said, getting tighter. Winnipeg is only 4 points behind the Leafs with the game in hand. Yeah, well, I don't know what that was.
I don't even want to know. My two dogs are with me, so and I know where the cats are, so I'm going to say it's okay.
Yeah, just like Kaya torture. But
no, Kaya's here. She's got a cone on, and she just had eye surgery a week ago, and so she has.
Sure, you're beating up Kaya. That's what you see the black and blue marks.
She had to go. She had a growth under her eyelid, so that's kind of like, well, I'm just letting the audience know. So it's kind of sensitive surgery, And so she has an ophthalmologist, because she has one eye that doesn't work, and the other one we have to put like 10, 12 drops in a day, different things, 3 different medications just for her glaucoma. So right now she's looking pretty good. She's got these panda eyes, but right now she's got her head in my lap with the cone.
I don't know, Terry. Somebody asked Foligno this question after the trade was made. His brother and he both jumped like their dad, on their first NHL goal. I don't think Nick would jump if he just scores a regular season goal for the Leafs. But if he scores an overtime goal like his dad did in '93 against the Red Wings, I think he probably would jump. But we can only hope, because I'm excited to see, because I've always liked Nick Foligno as a player. He's always been a really solid pro, and joining this group, it should be cool. Let's just hope and pray it's not like Doug Gilmour coming back for his second turn in Toronto, which lasted about 2 minutes, and then he blew his ACL and he was out for the year, and it ended his career. I'm hoping for a much better debut for Nick Foligno, but that
it will be. I mean, he'll crash and bang, and maybe he'll get a dirty goal, and I mean, I think all of that will be really good. I do. We'll see. Long term, though, the Leafs, they are having a little bit of an injury bug thing, and I do worry a little bit about the older guys, the age that they've plugged in. I don't worry about Spezza. When I talk about the age, it's never Jason Spezza because he's reliable as anybody, but it's Thornton, it's Simmons. These guys could miss shifts and miss time at any given moment.
Well, and I'll give Keith credit here. He is starting to insert some of the younger players.
Yeah.
Adam Brooks, who had a couple good years in the American Hockey League, he's played only 3 games this year. He scored a couple goals. He scored a shorthanded goal against Vancouver on Tuesday. He's getting a chance at fourth line center. Rasmus Sandin is replacing Bogosian. They still don't know what's going on with Bogosian in terms of the injury. So some of the young guys are getting an opportunity, and Jack Campbell is back in net for the Leafs. So this will be a game that we'll all watch, and we'll see tomorrow. Now,
let me just ask you this. Do you think there's any chance that the Leafs are going to try and re-sign Simmons off this season?
Yes.
I don't know if I would. You really think they're going to?
Yes, as long as it's around the same amount of money or a little less. I think now the thing is Simmons wanted to use this year as a springboard.
I know he did.
Getting a new contract.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. He's not going to get a multiple year deal anywhere.
No.
I think now the thing is he likes playing in Toronto. He likes being a member of the Leafs. I think the Leafs like his energy. But with their contract situation, with guys like Hyman needing a new deal and Riley, and we don't know about the goaltending, if he tries to ask for $2.5 million, it's not going to happen. If he comes back at around the same amount of money, I think they'll re-sign him. They like the effect that he has in the room. They like that he's one of the few guys who crashes and bangs. So yeah, I think they'll bring him back. I think they'll bring Spezza back. I think they'd bring Bogosian back. The only one I think that they wouldn't bring back, and not because he doesn't have a positive effect, but I think this is it for Thornton. I don't think Thornton will be here. Couple notes here. Mort Seider wins the Elite Prospects Award for top junior player in the SHL. It becomes the first non-Swede to win that. Now, Russ, back to the combine, we heard he was going to be somebody who was climbing the draft chart. Mm-hmm. Gets drafted 6th, I believe, by Detroit. Doesn't play in the NHL, doesn't play in the AHL this year. They send him over to Sweden. He has a great year. He's going to be in the NHL next year. This was a good move by the Red Wings to let him play regularly in the SHL.
Yeah, no question. We all were in favor of that. I thought it was a great move. I was just like, you know what? Better that than playing with a semi-lousy team, even though Detroit's playing a little better of late, and still – Let's let him get that season in. He did. He wins the award. That's great. I write for Elite Prospects, so I'm happy, and I really like Seider. You knew how high I was. I'm actually going to let people know where I ranked him because I forget actually where
I think he like 10.
Yeah, it might have been like somewhere between 8 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah, not like I think like the NHL Central Scouting had him like 18 or something like that.
Yeah, it was something. They definitely didn't know enough about him. It was one of those situations where,
but we could tell at the combine because his measurables were off the chart, and he had played great for Germany at the World Championships as a 17 or 18-year-old. So.
Right, that was and that is the one failing of Central Scouting is when they get this list into the teams, time is not on their side, right? So they don't get the benefit of seeing that. And so then it's like, all right, I get it. But at the end of the day, yeah, he's a heck of a player. So let's see. Oh, this is my first version. Well, let's see where I ranked him on my first one. On my first one, I had him ranked 9th. So we'll see if I can find my 3rd or 4th version. But anyhow, I'm high on the kid, and I really do think he's a heck of a player.
Okay, we'll take some questions in the chat. Flamester is asking, Russ, how close do you think Jacob Pelletier, excuse me, I always butcher that name. making the jump next season.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ready to make the jump. I do know that he does play two-way hockey, so that's really good. I do know that he's speedy. He can score. He's got a good shot. I really was pretty high on him as well, higher than some, because I felt like others were like not sure what kind of offense he would bring to the next level. And I guess, that's going to be a question mark until it happens. But I really like him. And I just don't know. Like I found my third ranking. So I had Sider 9th. I had Peltier 25th. And I have to go see where he went now. I'm not even sure. Let's see. But I like him. I just don't know if I put him in the NHL next year.
Okay. While you're looking that up here, I'll answer this and get your opinion on Rogers asking.
26. So it's pretty. It's pretty close ranking. Teams aren't supposed to necessarily pick where I rank players, but in that case, it worked out.
How close would you put Amarov to getting a chance on the NHL club? I'll give you my opinion. They signed him to a three-year ELC to start next season. Now they've already said he's going back to UFA for 21-22. So scratch next year. He'll come to training camp, but he's going back to Russia.
Now he'll go back to Russia for another year for sure.
Right. Now the thing is, with that's fine because the contract slides.
Yeah,
they'll have the full 3 year. The full 3 years of the deal. He'll be 20. He'll be 20 after that. He's 19 now.
Is there a guarantee that he comes that next year for the Leafs? No, because he's Russian, and if he gets thrown a lot of money at him, it could take longer. I mean, if he has a great year,
well, they already signed him to the ELC.
No, I know that, but it's not going to take effect until he shows. What I'm saying is, it could take longer for him to show. It doesn't mean he's going. We know he's going back to Russia next year, but he could go back to Russia for a year after that too. Is my point.
It sounds like that basically. If he doesn't make the Leafs in 22, that he goes back to Russia.
Right, and I would think that would be the stipulation.
Right. Yeah. It's basically the European assignment clause.
And and it's one of those things. This isn't about is the KHL a developmental league? This is just about, hey, he can make money there. Don't take money out of this guy's pocket when you want him to be a star for you down the line.
And they have a relationship with UFA, a good working relationship, and he can get, he gets more mature, he gets stronger, he becomes more of a finished product. So at 21 years old, if he comes over and plays half a year in the AHL or steps right into the lineup, that's not a losing scenario for the Leafs. So I don't think you'll see him next year, and you might not see him the year after that. But that again, he's 19 years old right now.
I'm going to say no to this for Mike Sullivan. Should he be a candidate for Coach of the Year because of the injuries and everything? Because a lot of people had him fired mid-season when things weren't going so well. So I don't think so. I think he is just going to hold on to his job because he weathered the season. He's getting paid for what he's supposed to do. But I think ultimately on this one, the players pulled through. But it's been a little shaky with Sullivan the last couple of years. It's gone up and down with him. I supported him last year when I know a lot of people felt like he was going to go, and he didn't. Remember, Eck was talking about that for a little while. So I think he's safe for now. But again, Ron Hextall's there. Mike Sullivan's not his guy. That's not going to last forever.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do this closer to the end of the season when we talk about, candidates for the Calder, candidates for Coach of the Year.
Yeah, we'll do that later on.
Yeah, I mean, but let's see here.
Because the Calder is a race, and right now, Ilya Sorokin is 4th or 5th in that race, much to Eck's chagrin.
Right. Do you think Kekalainen might try to trade one of his 3 first-rounders? The only way he does that is that he can get a player who's an NHL player who he can hold on to for 4 or 5 years. Because
I do think he is. Let's see. It has to be somebody like that. Is there somebody? I'm trying to think in my head.
Well, okay,
is there somebody like that?
Oh, I'm like a Travis Konechny. Let's use Philadelphia as an example. He's locked in on a contract. He doesn't have no trade clause. Unless he throws a hissy fit like Jeff Carter, he'd be basically, he's got to stay in Columbus and make the best of it. they're not going to trade for guys who can easily walk away quickly.
No. I get that, but you're also not going to get the best out of Konechny if you do that, and you should know that if you make that trade. But I get what you're saying. There's probably a couple players like that out there. Honestly, with Columbus right now, I might just take all picks and prospects, guys that aren't going to be in the NHL, because they're starting over anyhow. Honestly, after this happens and Seth Jones leaves or Werenski leaves, one or the other, they're starting over, Mike.
Yeah. Well, I agree. Terry 3Gs. No matter what the outcome of the Leafs are in the playoffs, do you see them finally plugging in Sandin and Liljegren into the Leafs blue line next season? Okay. Let's say, right now, next year, Muzzin's back, Brody's back, and Riley's back. That's your top three. I believe that if Zach Bogosian is willing to sign a deal, again, close to what he signed this year, which is $1 million for a year. If they give him a raise, $1.5 million, he's scored, I think, 4 points all year, but he's been a solid bottom pairing veteran defenseman.
But next year will be the year he plays 5 games. I'm not sure I would sign Zach Bogosian.
Right, but if it's $1 million, then it doesn't matter. I mean, then you put it on LTIR. But I'm saying at a low price, you bring him in. Or the question right now with the Leafs on the blue line is they protect 3 in the expansion draft. That means you expose Justin Hall and you expose Travis Dermott.
Right.
I personally believe that they're going to try to entice Seattle to take Dermott and to pass over Hall, because Hall is playing on the second pair.
What are you going to give him for that enticement?
Probably a draft pick.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll do it for a draft pick.
They might not. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
They might try to do. The thing is, that
might be like you tipping a guy at Yankee Stadium a 5 to get a better seat, and he's looking for a 20.
Well, there's a lot of empty seats. I can just walk and take one.
See, you are that guy. I knew it. You give him the 20, Mike. That's the answer.
No, I'll jump over the wall to sit next to Nicole Kidman and her kids in the luxury boxes. No, but what they might do is they might protect 8 skaters in one, and
they could do that.
And protect Hall, because then it would basically, they would expose a guy like Kerfoot who's making $3.5 million. Something.
I mean, Hall's good, especially because of his not making much money. His salary is really what makes the player.
Yeah.
Player's decent, but the salary is really what makes it a great package.
$2 million for another 2 years. But to answer your question, Sandin is going to be the player who replaces whoever they lose, if they lose one of Hall or
Liljegren's never going to get a chance with the Leafs. I can tell you that right now. They've strung him along this long. They're not doing it.
The funny thing is they've strung him along, but they clearly see him as an asset.
Oh no, but again, this is the same way that Lush treating Josh Hosang as an asset.
Yeah,
those assets don't get to see the ice, Mike. They're just assets.
Yes, but
and I don't like to see that as a prospect guy.
But at least in this instance, they've developed Liljegren.
To a degree, I think they've stunted his development now.
I mean, he clearly wasn't ready last year.
No, but this year he could have seen time.
Right.
There's been a million opportunities. You admitted that early on.
Other than Jake Muzzin breaking a bone in his face and missing 2 games, they've lost no man games on the blue line.
Okay, all right. So hold on. So you're telling me there's no way he could have played in place of Zach Bogosian? Come on, Mike.
They sat Bogosian 1 game.
No, I'm saying, but they should have sat him more to get this kid some playing time if they really cared about him, but they don't.
He's played good. That's that they weren't going to mess with success.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, they were rotating Mikko Lehtinen and Dermott until they decided Dermott was the one, and then they played the same 6 for 25 games or something like that. So.
Right. So they're going to freeze him out next year too. So they're going
to, or they trade him for draft picks.
Right. That's what's going to probably happen. He's going to probably get traded at the draft because they're going to realize we can't hold on to him any longer, and we might as well get something for him.
Now he's exempt, so they won't lose him in the expansion.
No, they won't lose him that way, but they're going to probably just get rid of him.
Right. All right. Good show, guys.
Hold on. So I'll answer this one more because Anthony asked, is there a blue liner that you'd like to see the Rangers add this summer? Honestly, if they added somebody who has a physical edge to him, that would be good. Brendan Smith never really filled that bill the right way. But if you could get a hard-nosed defenseman, that would be good. I'm just trying to think if anybody comes to mind. Like
I'm looking up defenseman UFAs just to see what would be out there. David Savard.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably going to cost too much for their salary structure, though. Who else you got?
Well, you got to figure it's the guys who are Jordy Ben.
Yeah, a guy like Jordy Ben would actually be very good for their system. He would, because then you could actually, it won't be all up to Trouba to kind of, have to lay those big hits. I think a guy like Ben I would not take on the Burns contract. No way, no how. You're talking about Wade Redden. Okay, the second coming of Wade Redden with that.
Here you go. I'm just reading off the UFAs, courtesy of Cap Friendly. Alex Edler, wrong type of defenseman.
Right.
Mark Stahl, been there, done that. Alex Goligoski. Nope. Yarmulson.
Nope.
A little too old.
Jason
Demers, same. Ian Cole.
Ian Cole would be a good addition. If they could get Ian Cole for a couple of years at the right price, he could help along some of the young guys. Because, look, Ryan Lindgren will eventually be that guy, but you don't want to put all the pressure on him still. He's still not, hasn't played enough games.
Erica Branson.
No.
Alec Martinez.
Look, Martinez could do something for him. I mean, if he came in.
He's actually had a good offensive year, so he's going to cost.
So, yeah, forget that.
Forget Tyson Berry. Oh, the defensive stalwart known as Eric Gustafson. What the hell? Jordy Ben, as I said. Vatanen, no. Gunnarsson, injury problem.
I like Ian Cole and I like Jordy Ben as options.
Yeah. I mean, Dmitry Kulikov.
Nah, I don't think he'd even be a good fit.
So, yeah.
Zadorov, William's saying like Zadorov. Yeah, like if they could get Zadorov, of course they could get him, but they're not going to get him.
He's an RFA, not a UFA.
I'll tell you who would have been a good fit, Ryan Graves. They gave him away for Chris Bigra. That was a horrible trade.
What about Zdeno Chara?
Yeah, that could be a good one. If they could lure Zdeno, because I said that this year, if they could imagine if they did have Zdeno Chara, this run that they're having would be a lot better.
Yeah. All right. Good show. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching. And remember, without the buzz,